A common question I hear these days is, how do I turn my passion into a career? There's a lot of talk about passion. I talk about this on this podcast a lot. Everyone has a passion. We all have passions. But is it possible to turn that passion into a full-time income? Is it possible to not spend every day just going through the motions, but to wake up every day looking forward to getting to work? Can we do work that both fuels our passion while also making a profit? Yes. I truly believe the answer is yes. Welcome to Business with Purpose. I'm your host, Molly Stillman of stillbeingmolly.com, and this show is all about bringing you the stories behind the brands, companies, and small businesses that are changing the world. Each week, I interview an entrepreneur, a CEO, a community leader, or an amazing person who is trying to make a positive impact not only through their personal life, but also with their professional career. My goal is to show you that no matter what you do for a living, you can make an impact right where you are. My guest this week is Marisa Flacks, the founder of Rise Creative. Marisa has actually become a dear friend of mine over the past 7 months or so, and I have come to really love, respect, and admire her. Her branding agency that specializes in working with businesses in the ethical and sustainable space is amazing. And Marisa is so knowledgeable, and honestly, she's so wise beyond her years. You are going to adore her. Before we get to our conversation with Marisa, I want to thank one of this week's sponsors of the show, which is Causebox. I love having Causebox as a partner of this podcast because I've been a subscriber of Causebox since the beginning. I started subscribing to Causebox over 2 years ago and immediately fell in love with it, and I have been a proud member ever since. For those that don't know, Causebox is a quarterly subscription box that comes out each season, and each season's box has a whole design and product theme, and every single product in the box is ethically made, fair trade, or gives back in some way. And the products are gorgeous. This is one of my all-time favorite subscription boxes, and truly, I believe it is honestly one of the best values. It costs around $50 a box, but you receive more than $150 worth of beautiful and unique products that are making a difference in the world. Causebox just announced an extremely limited edition men's box. Yes, a box full of amazing ethical products for the guys in your life. This is selling out fast, so you have to hop on it. The team at Causebox has been so generous to provide my listeners with an exclusive coupon code for $15 off your first box with the code MOLLY. Simply go to stillbeingmolly.com/Causebox to sign up. That's stillbeingmolly.com/CAUSEBOX and use the coupon code MOLLY for $15 off. And if you haven't heard my interview with Matt Richardson, the co-founder of Causebox, go back and listen to episode 13 of this podcast to hear his amazing stories and all about the history of Causebox. Now, on to the episode with Marisa. Hey, Marisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I am so excited to have you on. And for those that don't know you, you and I have gotten to know each other over the last couple of months. We've started doing some work together, and I am just so excited for everybody to meet you. And because I feel like I'm like introducing a friend to my other friends.
Oh, thanks. I'm excited to be on and to talk to everyone.
Yes. So what you do is so unique in this space because honestly, there's just not a lot of people out there that do what you do. And so without further ado, I feel like I keep saying the word do. Without further ado, I want you to give us the Marisa 101. So tell us all about yourself, where you're from, how you got started, and tell us your story.
Sure. So my name is Marisa Flacks. I'm the founder of Rise Creative. We are one of the first ethical branding agencies. So we specialize in digital marketing and branding specifically for ethical brands in fashion, home goods, and beauty. I'm originally from New Jersey, Pennsylvania. I kind of grew up back and forth between the two, and I am now located in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Queen City.
Yes, I love this city. It's so cool.
Yes. And so how did you get into doing what you do? I mean, because I know that you have a marketing background, but as, you know, focusing it in the ethical space, that niche is so unique. I remember when I first came across you, I was like, this is genius. Like, I don't feel like I've seen this before. So, I mean, maybe one other person. So tell us kind of how you got into marketing and, is this something that you studied in school, and what made you decide to start Rise Creative?
Yeah, so I have loved fashion since I was young. I mean, I used to line my walls with magazine pages. My parents hated me. And I really just wanted to work in the fashion industry. I loved how creative it was, and that it was just kind of an outlet for so much culture and art. So when I went to college, I went to Rutgers University in New Jersey, and I was close to New York and just kind of interned my butt off wherever I could in the industry. And 2 years in, I kind of found myself in a rut. Like, I didn't really feel like I was serving anyone or helping anyone. And that's just something that I guess is innate in me. I love to serve other people. And I just felt like I was kind of stuck in a corporate world that didn't feel right to me. And don't get me wrong, there are so many people in the corporate fashion industry who are so talented and great at what they do, but I just didn't feel like I was where I was meant to be. And by chance, I had taken a cultural anthropology class, and my professor was what he called a fashion anthropologist, which is something I had never heard of. And it was so exciting to me. We learned about, how the industry affects parts of Southeast Asia and upcycling and recycling and just the entire fashion process throughout the areas of the world that you don't usually think of, especially when you're in corporate. And so from there, I was kind of determined, like, how can I combine these two? How can I serve these communities, but also work in fashion? And I didn't really know what to do. I mean, I remember emailing, like, every article we read, I emailed the author, like, okay, I love what you wrote about, what can I do with this? And I actually went to an If Gathering event in, I think it was 2014, at my church, and a girl there had set up a noonday table. And at the time, I didn't know what noonday was, and I picked up a pamphlet, and it just talked all about how noonday serves women around the country in the capacity of, building jewelry and in the fashion sphere. And it was like a light bulb went off. Like, this is what I want to do. I want to work with, ethical and fair trade fashion. Around the same time, the movie The True Cost came out. So it was just kind of like everything was really coming together. And there was finally this path that I could take that I didn't know about. So at the time, I was halfway through college, feeling kind of lost. Like, how do I make a career shift at this moment? So that summer, I just took 3 internships at once and did as much as I could. And I just learned so much from the brands that I worked with. And when I graduated, a lot of these brands are nonprofits and small business, and it's very hard for them to have full-time staff that are dedicated to marketing. And so I really kind of wanted to just fill that gap and serve these brands in my background, which is communication and marketing. And I'm really grateful that I get to do it on a daily basis, and I love it.
I think that is so cool. I want to go back a little bit. One of the things that you said that really stuck out to me was how you found yourself in a rut and you didn't feel like you were serving anyone, and you kind of felt stuck in that corporate world. Yeah. And that is one of those things that I know I have felt. And I talk to countless people who say the same thing, who are just, they feel stuck in their day-to-day life, whatever it is. Maybe they feel stuck in a job. Maybe they feel stuck where they live. This feeling of being stuck is such a common thing I hear these days. But I also feel like we live in this, like, a very different culture these days than we did even 3 or 4 years ago, where people are realizing that life is short. And I realize that this is not a new concept, but people realize that life is short, and being stuck forever is a miserable way to live. And like you said, it's not to say that working in a corporate job is bad, because some people that is what they're meant to do, and that's what they're called to do. But I guess when you've started to feel like you were in that place, and you were like, you had this passion for clothing and fashion for years, and you kind of got into that space, and all of a sudden it just didn't feel right. What were those initial steps that you took to get out of that? And what would be your advice to somebody who maybe is in that place right now and kind of feels stuck?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing that I would say, which you kind of already mentioned, is that we are so lucky to live in a time where many people are doing their own thing and making their passions into their careers. And I mean, I think it has a lot to do with the digital age and the internet, that you can create a business online in 5 minutes. And when I was in that rut, I kind of just had to take a step back and reevaluate, what are my passions? What is my purpose? What is my calling? And how can I live that out? Even if it's in a way that I had never pictured or never, imagined for my future. So I honestly read a lot of books. I have a very large book collection, everything from business books like Girl Boss and everything that was kind of like the millennial entrepreneur genre, I guess.
Yeah.
To like Jenny Allen and Allie Worthington and just some really great authors who talk about, living out your purpose and living out your calling. And I just kind of had to take the leap of faith and hope I'm walking in my purpose, that it's going to work out. I guess my advice would be to just do it and do what you got to do. Like if you have to be a waitress for the 6 months it takes to get your business up and running, like anything that it takes to make you happy instead of being stuck, like you said, in that miserable place of just not being happy in your job, it's definitely worth it in the end.
Oh, girl, yes. I remember. A big part of my story is when I moved to North Carolina in 2009. This was, right kind of after the recession, but sort of in the peak of the recession when the economy was just horrible. And I had been a high school teacher for a couple years, and I'd moved to North Carolina, and I had all these big dreams and hopes and aspirations. And I get here and nobody's hiring. And I was trying to build this freelance marketing business on the side, and I was just trying to hustle. And I was also broke. I was in so much debt, and I was trying to get out of debt. And there I was at one point, like I literally just took any job that I could get. And so I was working part-time at an art gallery. And then I was working for like $10 an hour. And then I was working at Anthropology, the store, doing retail. My first day was Black Friday. That was horrible. Like working retail on Black Friday at Anthropology, and people are walking in going, "Do you have any doorbusters?" And I was like, "This is Anthropology, not JCPenney. Get out of here." No, we don't have doorbusters. And then I worked as a food runner, food runner at a bar.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I was a food runner, and then I worked part-time at a radio station. And I remember there would be nights when, and again, I'm trying to build I'm blogging and I'm trying to build my business and all this kind of stuff. And there would be nights where I'd be working at the bar, and I'd be handing, this is just me being honest and frank. I'd be handing tables of drunk dudes, cheese fries and beer. And I'm like, I have a college degree. I worked for the governor of Virginia, and it's 1:30 in the morning, and I'm handing drunk people cheese fries. What am I doing with my life? But at the same time, I also had to just accept that was the place I was in. And if I wanted to get out of that place eventually, I was going to have to put in the hard work. And it was terrible. I mean, I'm not even going to sit here and say that I'm like, oh, it was it was so wonderful and really tough. I mean, no, it was awful. But I tried to make the most of it. The bulk of my money came from that, that food running job, because I would get tips and stuff. But I used, the art gallery job. It was a very slow job. So what did I do is I was basically getting paid $10 an hour to build my blog and work on my blog and all that kind of stuff. And so, and then the radio station job eventually became my full-time job. And so I just tried to use those as opportunities to grow. And so I think that is such a great piece of advice that you said, that sometimes you have to get out of that place and maybe even put yourself in a worse place for a short period of time so that you can focus on the things that do make you passionate. Because as horrible as those 4 jobs were, I was strategic in making money, but then using some of the time at one job to build the business that I have now. And so it's interesting to kind of look back and kind of see how that all worked out. So I love that the way you put that.
Yeah. And I mean, I think even looking back, I mean, I don't know if you can say this, but I am grateful for those little jobs who helped get me through. I mean, I was in the restaurant industry for 6 years, high school, college, even a little bit after college. And I mean, I made some of my best friends there, but now I can look back and say I'm grateful that that was my source of income, while either during the day or after hours, I was working at what I love to do. And now I'm here and can do that full time. So And even people in a full-time job, like if you have a full-time job right now, there's a saying, and I can't remember what it is, but it's like, don't let your 9 to 5 basically be it. Like work on your passion from 6 to 10 or something like that, because you don't want to get stuck in that rut.
Yeah, absolutely. You said that you read a lot of books. Are there like maybe 1 or 2, maybe even 3 books that stick out in your head as you read that book and you're like, it's still on your shelf and you still reference it, like it changed your life? Are there any that you would recommend to anybody to read?
Present Over Perfect, number 1, for sure. I've read that multiple times. I actually, and I think it's important to backtrack a little bit, that when I graduated college, I didn't know that this is where I was going to end up. I actually had accepted a job offer and never planned on moving to North Carolina or being in Charlotte or working for myself, really. And I think that I just kind of had to, again, take a step back and really follow where I felt I was being called. And Present Over Perfect just helped me to really be present and be in the moment, no matter if it was what I had pictured or not. And I think it's such a great book for any season of life, like whether you are, like I said, graduating college and trying to figure out your life, or, you know, you're kind of coasting through and trying to be more present in your family and your friendships. It's just a really good book. Any Jenny Allen book. I've read like anything that was a really good one when I was feeling really stuck, just, you know, what am I going to do? And anything is all about praying, like, I will do anything that's in my purpose and in my calling. And that was a great one. And then I honestly, we're moving and I just packed all my books, and I wish I could look at my stacks right now. But,
no, that's okay. I know you're in like a season of transition as you guys move to, you guys are in, I guess you guys are technically in South Carolina now, but you're right on the border, right?
Yes. So right now, well, at this moment, I'm in South Charlotte, but we will be in South Carolina, like literally right over the border as of Saturday, which is exciting to get into a home office space, I guess, and have some room for the dog.
So another question I wanted to ask you, kind of going back to when you were talking about as you started to transition. So you took a cultural anthropology class, and your professor said that he was a fashion anthropologist. Please tell me more about this, because I am so interested. And the reason I say this is because my senior year of college, I had taken all my difficult classes early in college. And so my second semester, my senior year, you know, my last semester of college, I had just like a couple of random 101s that I needed to take to graduate. And I had like I don't know, it was like a liberal, I think I had like one liberal arts 101 that I had to take to graduate. And so I was like, I'll take Anthropology 101 because that sounds interesting. And it ended up being probably my favorite class I took in college. And I was so mad that I took it my second semester senior year, because I was like, I want to take all the anthropology classes now. Like, it legitimately, my husband who edits these shows, he's going to laugh because I talk about that class all the time. Really? He's like, we get it. You loved that class.
It's underrated though. Like,
you know,
anytime I say anthropology, I've gotten like, do you dig up dinosaur bones? Like, just these crazy assumptions. And I'm like, it's so interesting. Like,
it is so interesting.
One class.
It is so interesting. Okay. So before we get into that, I want to, the fashion anthropologist thing, what is, I don't know, and maybe this actually could answer that question as well. What is the most interesting thing you've ever learned in an anthropology class? And then I'll answer as well, because I want to talk nerdy anthropology stuff.
Oh, that's so hard to answer.
Is there something in particular that has what's something about anthropology that you really love?
Learning things that you would never think existed in the world. Like, one thing, I guess, I don't even know how to explain it because it's been so long since I've reviewed the concept, but in Brazil, speaking about skin color, I guess because of your social status, there's a way for you to not be considered a certain ethnicity when you are physically that ethnicity.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
it's
ethnicity
like is system.
Ethnicity is almost related to socioeconomic status.
Yeah. So because of your socioeconomic status, it can exclude you or bring you higher than what they would consider your skin color to be. Like, it's just this whole intricate system. And they also have a third gender, and it's awesome. Like, it's so cool to hear about what's normal in other places of the world that you would never think exists.
That's fascinating.
From
See
what you learn every day.
See, if you're listening and you've never learned anything about anthropology, I am telling you, it is so interesting. Like, it's fascinating. And I want to find some of the, like, I almost wish I could remember what some of the documentaries we watched in that class were, because I would like die to find them on Netflix these days or something. Like, if anybody knows of any good anthropology documentaries, tweet me, Instagram me.
Send them our way.
Send them our way.
There's one, Nanook of the North, is about Eskimos in Canada, and it's so interesting.
Wait, what? Tell me that again.
It's called Nanook of the North.
Is it like NANUK?
I think it's NANOOK.
All right. I'm writing this down. Nanook of the North, Eskimos in Canada. Got it. Done. So the one that I always remember the most, and I think about it every time I go to New York City, is we studied the mole people. Do you know what the mole people are?
I think so.
So the mole people they started, and forgive me if I misquote the exact year that they got started, because I want to say it was sometime in the 50s, but it could be even as early as the 40s. But it's basically a sect of New York City's, like Manhattan's, homeless community that retreated underneath the subways. And so when the subway system in Manhattan was first built, there are like tunnel after tunnel after tunnel, and a lot of them are no longer used. So like initial tunnels that were built in New York City, like were built underneath the tunnels you go in now. So like when you ride the subway in New York now, like underneath of you are more tunnels. And so this sect of homeless people in New York City, or people experiencing homeless, I'm trying to get better at saying it that way. People experiencing homeless in New York City they retreated to those tunnels that are underneath of the subways because it's warmer down there. And eventually they started their own like community. And so they have this whole system set up. And I don't know at this point, because I studied them when I was a senior in college. So this would have been 2007. And this is my second semester senior year. So this is 10 years ago, over 10 years ago. And so at the time, and there was like probably close to a couple thousand, maybe even more, that lived in the tunnels. But they have like a whole kind of hierarchy system. Like they have what they would deem a mayor. They have an education system down there, like quote unquote schools. It's like a whole system that exists down there. And
that still exists today?
Yes. Yeah. And like people are like, they think it's a myth, but it's not. Like this is real. Like we watched a documentary on it. Then this journalist years ago went down and like befriended them, and basically she wrote a book on it. So I think it's called just The Mole People, MOLE. Wow. And it's fascinating. But they, they have children, like they just, and they, I guess certain mole people will come up to the surface, I guess. I really, I'm not trying to sound offensive at all, but this is what I learned. They like come out of the tunnels to get like food scraps and stuff, but mostly they subsist off like rats and squirrels and stuff down there. It's very interesting. And like, I think the city of New York for years has tried to get them out and help them. But like for most of the people, again, forgive me if I'm saying something incorrectly, but from what I best understood is that they are, I guess you could say, happy down there, and they like live their own life. I mean, they clearly don't pay taxes or anything. Like they just kind of exist beneath the subways of New York. It is fascinating.
Yeah, and that's what I mean, like figuratively and literally, you learn about things that are overlooked in anthropology.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, but then there's like all these, I guess like if you live in New York, it's kind of like a rite of passage of living in New York to spot a mole person like coming out of the subways. So because I have friends, I have family up there, I have friends up there, and they're like, I saw my first mole person. And I'm like, yeah. So anyway, again, forgive me if I'm saying something offensive. I promise I'm not trying to but it really is. It's really, really interesting. And, but it was, it's one of those things. I should probably update myself and kind of see what's the status of the mole people in 2017, because I don't know. But yeah, this is what I learned in 2007. But anyway, so with that being said, tell me about your professor who was referring to himself as a fashion anthropologist.
Yeah, so he basically, I know right now he's working in Europe. So he basically studies fashion in different communities all over the world and how the industry affects different communities. I remember learning about how basically our donated T-shirts were being repurposed in South Asia by what we would consider upcycling, I guess, by making new designs out of old products. We learned about, which I later ended up using for my senior thesis, how a group of, I want to say it was 6, it might have been 8 designers from Brussels in Belgium, took their clothing to London for London Fashion Week and kind of put, I guess, Brussels on the map as far as fashion and just kind of different little niche areas throughout the world. And that kind of led me to study a niche area. So for my thesis, I ended up studying how the fashion industry was impacted by economics, society, and politics in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Wow. That is so cool. I would not have honestly known that was even really a thing.
Yeah, it's so interesting because the industry is huge.
It is.
I know that in the ethical space, there's on a daily basis, I read statistics, but you don't realize it until you're actually, trying to study it, that it's so big. And it's so diverse and unique. And it does have the ability to really affect people's lives economically as far as providing jobs, which is amazing. And it's so great to see so many ethical brands trying to serve people in that way. And I think that, studying fashion from an anthropological lens is a great way to, study impact and how we can strengthen the relationships between ethical brands and the communities that they serve.
Okay, let's take a quick break to let me tell you about another awesome company that is helping to make this show possible. Our sponsor today is Sevenly. Sevenly was founded in 2011 with the mission of leading a generation towards generosity. Based on the core belief that people matter, the Sevenly team created a cause art movement consisting of 7-day cause campaigns, inviting customers to purchase advocacy art, apparel, and accessories that donate to nonprofits. Now widely recognized as one of the world's leading social good companies, to date, Sevenly has given back over $5 million to charities around the world. This holiday season, Sevenly is excited to offer you the opportunity to give back while also giving gifts to your loved ones. I love the Love Thy Neighbor as Thyself shirt that directly benefits Hurricane Harvey victims. In fact, 100% of the proceeds are going to help our Texas friends. You can check out their signature collections at sevenly.org and give back to the charity of your choice. Use the coupon code MOLLY10 for 10% off now through the end of November. And if you have not heard my interview with the co-founder of Sevenly, Jim Van Erden, you can go back and listen to episode 53 to hear it. It was one of my favorite episodes to date, and I know you will love it. Now, back to my conversation with Marisa. You mentioned earlier that when you really decided to pursue your passion and you ended up starting Rise Creative, which is an ethical branding agency. Help explain a little bit more as to what you do. So I know that your primary clients, obviously you and I are doing some work together, but your primary clients are brands in the ethical space. So if it's a fair trade fashion company or a ethical t-shirt line or, a clean beauty brand, something like that, what is your role in working with them? And, and I guess this is almost one of those things where it's like, say we meet in an elevator and I'm an ethical brand.
What's
your elevator pitch? But yeah, I'd love for you to kind of share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, and I'm sure from us working together, I always start by saying it's very personalized. So whatever your brand needs, wherever you see a hole, anything from social media to content, I've recently started doing creative direction in kind of all aspects of branding, as far as, does your tagline and your messaging match the pictures that you're putting out or match the story you're trying to tell? I'm really big into creative storytelling. I think kind of having that like anthropological perspective has helped me to be what some would call, I guess, politically correct, how you're telling your stories about the communities that you're working with. And then other things, kind of nerdy tech things like SEO and SEO audits and everything like that. So really any corner of marketing where a brand has a hole or doesn't really know how to explore that area, I try and come in and either consult them and kind of give them direction, or I actually manage that project myself.
That's awesome. What has been something that you've learned, or maybe a common thread that you've seen since starting your company and working with brands in this space? Like, is there a particular, maybe a common thread that ethical brands need help with, or what's something that you've learned, that maybe when you first started out, you were going to do something one way, but then as you really got into it, you realized that another way was better?
I think it's honestly evolving every day. I mean, I feel like I am learning new things every day.
Yeah.
Like when I first started, I just assumed, okay, like social media and blog are going to be the two big things. But, I'm a huge nerd when it comes to analytics. Mm-hmm. And I think that like data informs so much when you're building your brand and deciding what to put out there and where to invest your time. So, social media and blog has turned into adding on newsletters and, changing your messaging on your website and including keywords and SEO. And it's just always evolving. I mean, social media and the internet is always changing. I mean, Instagram has changed its algorithms like 3 times this year.
I know.
So I think it's important to really just keep up with not only how the internet is changing, but also how brands can adapt to that. One pattern, I guess, could be content. I think it's really hard as a small business owner who is trying to, ethically source their products and do production and sourcing and customer service and all of that, to also handle, social media and blog posts and even, I'm sure putting together like the creative direction of a photo shoot can be challenging at sometimes when you're trying to handle all the aspects of business. So, like I said, that's why I really just like to come in and fill whatever need they have at that time.
Yeah. I'd love for you to kind of share a little bit more about, one of the things you said was that you are really into creative storytelling and that you mm-hmm. help your clients and your brands tell the stories of the communities that they're serving, and mm-hmm. being politically correct in that. And I mean, and I think it's even, this is an area that in a lot of ways is ever changing, because what is politically correct now, or the right thing to say, I guess you could say, is different than probably what it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. I mean, and it's something that I'm constantly learning myself as well. And, mm-hmm. I so often try to explain to people that like ethical fashion is not about charity. It's about opportunity. Mm-hmm. It's about giving people the chance to earn a fair wage. And, they don't want a handout. They, just because they live in a developing nation, like you are no better than them. They
right, exactly.
They don't have access to the same opportunities we do. And so,
right.
And the same with like, earlier, I corrected myself on saying homeless people to people experiencing homelessness. Mm-hmm. And this is something that I have been educated on myself in the last couple of years. And I'm still trying to change my habits of the way I address people. And I realize that maybe for most people, you might think that this is something that's super minor, but it's important. And so I guess, what are some of the things that you do or are important to you when you get into that area of creative storytelling and in so many ways, being politically correct and doing it?
Mm-hmm. I like what you said, that we're no better than anyone else, because I think that's one big thing. In college, we learned about helping versus serving. So you're not going in there to help them. Like there's no, there's no hierarchy. Like we're no better than another community just because they lack those opportunities.
Yeah. So
I think just really humanizing, like making people, I always love to tell, especially if it's an artisan brand, love to tell the stories of the artisans. Like, this is a human being. This is their story. Like, you are no better than them, or, higher up on the food chain almost than them, just because, they don't have the same access that you may. So that's one thing, I guess, is really just making everything as humanity oriented as possible.
Yeah.
And then another thing is being sensitive to the communities that you're serving, being sensitive to, I guess, their own ethics. Like, for example, if you are serving a community who the women don't want to have their pictures online, or don't want to have their faces online, like, that's something that you have to be sensitive to in your messaging and your storytelling. Just really knowing more and being more educated about the communities that you're in. Yeah.
Like, that's a very common issue in India. India's most artisan groups that are in India, the artisans do not want their pictures taken, and they don't want their faces online. So that's a very culturally significant thing. And sometimes it's, maybe for personal reasons or even safety reasons, so that can definitely be a challenge. And, I know in some of the work I've done with ethical brands, sometimes they have to change names or just kind of use initials to describe somebody's story. Or maybe even you kind of create a hybrid of multiple stories that just kind of speak to a particular demographic or a particular type of person that you're serving or working with.
Right. Instead of that person. Yeah. And just kind of being like culturally aware of those cues and what you can and can't do, or what you should and shouldn't do. Yeah. Just to respect where you are and who you're working with.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the big challenges I know I have experienced in the last, couple of years is, I guess the best way to word this is just kind of educating consumers. And when I say consumers, I mean my friends, my family, I guess on why I'm so passionate about this, and why this is an issue that I believe is so important and I believe people should care about. And to be quite frank and quite honest, I feel like this is also an issue that Christians should be passionate about. And if you're not a Christian and you're listening to the show, that is awesome. That's okay. But I think in particular, this is an issue that I think Christians should be really getting behind. And I'm not seeing it the way that I feel like we should be. And I say that gently because my goal in this podcast and in my blog is I never want to make anyone feel bad. That is never my goal. I never want to sound preachy, anything like that. Like, that's why I use the term and the phrase education. But I guess I would love to kind of get your thoughts on, why do you think this is an issue that people have such a hard time, one, grasping, two, paying attention to? I have sort of my own thoughts on it, but I'd be really curious to know from your perspective as somebody who works a lot on the brand side, what do you think it is that consumers just aren't getting? Or do you think that just consumers still just don't know?
I think, well, number one, like anything in life, you can't convince someone to be for a certain cause. I think that it has a lot to do with personal experiences. And, myself, I know I'm personally invested into this niche, and that's why I care so much, because I've studied and seen the effects of this industry. But for someone who would rather just shop for convenience, that's their choice. And they're going to want to, go to the mall and pick out something that might be fast fashion and convenient for them. So I don't know. I think it's really a lot about personal experience. And again, like you said, education is very important. I think the more that you put the truth out there, and I know it sounds silly, but like one share on social media of an article, that's informative, someone's going to scroll by it and someone might be intrigued by it. So just really putting the truth out there as much as you can, and being as transparent as possible. And then, like I said, I'm really a huge proponent for creative storytelling. And if you're able to say, like, this is this is an artisan from India and this is her story, this is a real person that you can have an experience with and relate to. And hopefully that will, tug on someone's heartstrings to really care about what's happening. And that even though it's, so many miles away, it's real life and it's affecting people, it's affecting the earth, and in turn, it's affecting you personally. So,
yeah. Absolutely. And I always think it's interesting to see brands that are not fast fashion, or not ethical brands, kind of see how they market. And it was really interesting. I came across a brand the other day. I'm not going to say who it was, but they're literally, their like Facebook tag was like, "We are the best in fast fashion." And I was just like, no. All right, well, okay. You're like actually putting it out there. Like, look at us. We are fast fashion. Like, used the term and everything. And I was just like, what? But I almost wanted to be like, that's kind of weird, because I don't feel like that's a term that like people who are into fast fashion Google. Like, I don't feel like people are like, I want to find the best fast fashion. Like, I just don't.
Well, that's what I was going to say, is maybe people who don't really know what fast fashion means, like we do, just assume like, oh, convenience, like it's fast, it's easy, I'm going to go buy that,
Right. Yeah, it was a very strange thing for me to come across, and I really did not know how to handle it. I was like, okay, so interesting.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Okay, so now is one of my favorite parts of the show, where I get to just ask you some fun questions and get to know you a little bit better, on a more personal level, and we're just going to have some fun. This is also the fun part where my husband gets to insert a interesting sound effect to set up our lightning round, so to speak.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen. Cannonball!
So the first question is more of a little bit on the serious side. What is the best business advice you've ever been given?
I guess I posted a quote the other day, and I can't remember what it was, so I obviously didn't absorb it too well. But it was something about just you're going to have to adapt and change every single day and learn as you go. I think there's no book that can tell you exactly what you're going to experience, because everybody's business is different. So just being prepared for whatever comes, and learning from it, and learning how to adapt and change from it, and apply it to improve your business.
I love that. This is not as a serious quote or quote question. What is the movie you can watch over and over again and you can never get bored of it?
I have 3.
Ooh,
and they're
I like
all
it.
Like super chick flicks.
Oh, do it. Tell me. Hey, do not be ashamed. Do not be ashamed.
P.S. I Love You is like my favorite movie.
I've never seen that. I need to see it. I'm adding it to my list.
I cry every time. It's such a girly movie. The second one, No Strings Attached. And the third one, so cliche, but Devil Wears Prada.
Oh, I do love Devil Wears Prada. I have not seen it in years, but it's a great movie. You want to know what mine is?
Yeah.
The movie Airplane from the 80s. It's from, you've never seen Airplane? Oh my gosh.
I'm so bad with movies. Like, I own about 20 chick flicks,
okay,
and that's all I've ever watched.
Marissa, you need to watch Airplane. You need to watch Airplane. It's on, it's not on Netflix anymore, but it is on Amazon Prime Video, the instant video. Airplane. It's my jam. I've seen it probably over 1,000 times. Like, I can like recite the entire movie. If you were sent to space with 3 items, what would those 3 items be? Go. First things that come to mind.
My dog. Can I bring my dog?
Yeah, sure. He can be an item.
My dog. This is so bad, but probably my cell phone. I'm so attached to it.
Hey, well, if you were in space, you'd probably want to take some pictures. So
yeah, exactly. There you go.
I don't know that you would get cell service, but
you never know. No, there's space stations out there.
That's true. There are satellites out there. Maybe you'd get really amazing service.
That'd be really funny and ironic.
I know.
I guess a book, because what else are you going to do when you're just floating there?
Well, what book would it be? Because you'd probably have to read it a lot.
Huh. That's a hard one.
I know. This is like a sub-question to the question.
I would probably take a really large anthropology book that I've never read, so that it takes up all my time.
I like it. No, that's good because you're always learning. You're absorbing. And then I figured I'd throw this one in for you. And I know that you are a branding agency, so you are going to have a little bit of a bias, but that's okay. Name some of your favorite ethical fashion brands.
Oh.
And I know this is a hard one, but I just always love to know.
I always freeze when people ask me this question. So I wear basics all the time. Like my entire closet is black. My mom makes fun of me all the time. So I think Everlane is really good for basics.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say Symbology because they were my first internship and I still work with them and I love Marisa Flacks. She's amazing.
That's awesome.
And this is so hard.
Maybe jewelry. I could give you jewelry category.
Obviously Noonday because they are what really introduced me to the industry.
Yeah.
And there's so many, like, it's just amazing to see every week there's more brands that are just popping up and have new missions and are serving new communities. And it's really cool to see how fast the industry is growing.
Yeah, I completely agree. I have so many favorites as well, but a recent favorite, I would just say a recent favorite in the jewelry space. I mean, because everybody knows I love Noonday, I love Trades of Hope, I love those companies. But I'd heard of them, but had never actually worn any of their jewelry or like really seen any of their jewelry in person. But Starfish Project,
yes,
their jewelry is gorgeous, gorgeous, and so unique. It's beautiful, and it's one of my new favorites. So I'm not just saying that, but I'm wearing a Starfish Project necklace right now because I love it so much. And every time
they do a very good job with their social media, I will say that.
They do. And my daughter, every time I put on a Starfish Project necklace, because a lot of their jewelry is kind of made out of like I don't know, like stones or rocks, but kind of like amethyst looking type. I don't know exactly what they call it, but or like almost like crystals. They look almost like crystals, I guess. I don't know. But I'm totally messing this up. Sorry, Starfish Project. You're probably like, oh gosh, you're butchering it. But my daughter's obsessed with rocks, and she has her whole rock collection. And so every time I put on a Starfish Project necklace, she's like, Mommy, that necklace is so beautiful. Like she loves it. She thinks it is the best.
So cute.
Marisa, this has been so much fun, and I loved getting to know you a little bit more and hearing a little bit more of your story.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. And honestly, like I said, I think what you do is so cool and so needed because so many ethical brands, I mean, I've talked to many business owners at this point in this space, and this is a need. I mean, so many of them, one, maybe they get into the business because they're really passionate about business, but then they are not great with the marketing side, or they start the business because they know they really want to help, a particular group of people or serve a particular group of people, but then the branding part, they're lost. So I know this is a huge part. So much of what you do is really helping a lot of these companies. And so I will shamelessly plug you. And so if you're listening and you own an ethical fashion brand and you're really needing some help, you need to reach out to Marisa because she's amazing. So I'll shamelessly plug you because I have no shame. I'm just kidding.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Marisa is such a joy, and I love her perspective, her attitude, and her genuine passion for helping ethical businesses harness their messaging to grow and reach more people. If you are a business owner that is looking to grow or you need some help with branding and marketing, contact Marisa. Seriously, I think it's pretty evident at this point how much I adore her. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. If you are a first-time listener of the show, welcome. Be sure to visit the archives for past shows featuring so many amazing entrepreneurs who are quite literally changing the world just with their businesses and with their personal lives. If you're a regular listener of the show, thank you for tuning in and week out, and thank you for your support. Be sure to head on over to iTunes, Google Play, or whichever one of your favorite podcasting apps you use, and make sure you are subscribed to the show. Clicking that subscribe button helps to make sure that you never miss a new episode of the podcast. And while you're there, would you mind taking a moment to leave a review of the show? Leaving a review of the show helps me to know what you're liking and how this show is personally impacting you. And if you share the show on social media, be sure to use the hashtag Business with Purpose Podcast or tag me at Still Being Molly on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. Another huge thank you to this week's podcast sponsors, CauseBox and 7ly. Visit stillbeingmolly.com/CauseBox and use the coupon code MOLLY for $15 off. And for 7ly, visit 7ly.org and the coupon code MOLLY10 for 10% off. This show is edited by my amazing husband and executive producer, John Stillman, and the music is by Mark Killian of Third Wheel Media. Thank you so much for listening, and go do something good with purpose on purpose.